Hi everyone, welcome to Best Recapped Movie. Today we want to speak about movie that called in time. The story takes place in the future, where governments have made genetic changes to stop human life at the age of 25, and after that, everyone is given a year. And to live longer, you need to receive time. Time is now like money, and whoever is richer will live longer. The remaining time of each person is indicated by a clock on his hand. Now a person who lost his loved ones because of this system wants to destroy it. This video contains spoiler. In the beginning, we see Will Salas, who has only 24 hours to live. He spent the time gained from last night buying champagne for his mother Rachel Salas's 50th birthday. Rachel, who has about 3 days, explains that she has to pay half of her time for rent and 8 hours for electricity, as well as the bank loan installment. So she has to work 2 nights in a clothing store to get time again. Then she gives Will half an hour to eat lunch. Then we see a beggar girl named Maya begging Will for 5 minutes of time. Will works in a factory to buy time. But the time he gets is not enough to live a good life. So Will goes to a bar to see his best friend Burrell and buy time. In the bar, a rich man named Henry Hamilton invites everyone there for a drink.
He's got a century.
So a time thief named Fortis comes there with his men to kill Henry and get his time. While Henry seems unwilling to survive, Will helps Henry escape. Fortis and his men chase them but fail to find them. But one of the Fortis people knows Will.
I know who he is.
Henry explains that he is 105 years old, so although his body is young, his brain can't stand life anymore, so he wants to die. Will replies that he probably hasn't seen others die, that's why he doesn't appreciate being alive. Henry says that many people are killed in order for the rich to survive, and he explains about the difference in tax and income systems in poor and rich areas, and how everyday life becomes harder for the poor so that the rich can live longer. The next morning, while Will is still asleep, Henry quietly gives Will all of his time and leaves with a message. "Don't waste my time." Now Will have 116 years' time. Will tries to save Henry, but before he can reach him, Henry's time runs out and his body falls into the river. Will goes to see Burrell again and tells the story. Burrell warns that no one should see the watch on Will's wrist because his life will be in danger. Then Will gives him 10 years of his time because of his 10 years of friendship with Burrell. At night, after working and paying off her debts, Rachel wants to take a bus back home. The bus driver says that the cost of the bus is expensive and it takes 2 hours. But Rachel does not have enough time. She begs the driver because she needs 2 hours to walk home. But the driver answers,
"Then you better run."
Terrified, Rachel tries to run home. Will, who is waiting for his mother at the bus station, starts running to Rachel's work after seeing that she is not on the bus. They see each other and run towards each other. But Rachel's time runs out and she dies.
No!
The next day, a timekeeper named Raymond Leon begins to investigate Henry's death. He found out that Henry had a century before he died, and he came to an area where people kill each other for a week. So he decides to look for someone who has this time to find the killer. But when he wants to leave the place, he notices a CCTV camera. At the same time, we see Will who, now that he has become a rich man, decides to move to a better area to live. He spends a year traveling through different time zones and finally arrives in New Greenwich.
Welcome to New Greenwich.
Realizing that Will is not a real rich man, the driver asks him why he is in this place. Will replies that he wants revenge. In New Greenwich, a person named Sylvia Weiss is attracted to Will's behavior. Will rents a suite to stay. On the other hand, Raymond identifies Will by examining the camera footage. The footage doesn't reveal enough information about how Henry died, and Raymond suspects Will killed Henry to steal his time. By checking the time travel in the area, Raymond realizes that Will left there and went to another time zone. Will, who is not used to having much time, continues to do things quickly and constantly checks his watch, which is contrary to the behavior of rich people. So the cameras take his picture because of his suspicious behavior and Raymond manages to find him. Will decides to go to a casino where he has to pay a year of his time to enter for the first time. He plays poker with a guy named Philippe Weiss. Philippe, who has good cards, bets 50 years of his time. Then they talk about the structure of time zones. Philippe considers the system to be fair because he believes that the powerful must survive and considers it a Darwinian structure. Sylvia enters and sits next to Philippe. Philippe says Sylvia is one of those who doesn't like the system. Will apparently agrees with Philippe, but he gets angry and bets his whole life. Will wins and now has 11 centuries. Philippe realizes that Will is interested in Sylvia, but he does not know how she is related to Philippe. So he reveals that she is his daughter and introduces them to each other. Sylvia invites Will to their family party. The next day, Will buys a super sports car worth 59 years and goes to the party. Philippe welcomes him and introduces his wife Michelle and his mother Clara. Sylvia visits Will and invites him to the dance. Sylvia explains that Will's behavior reminds her of poor people and sometimes she envies them. Because the rich live as long as they don't do something stupid, and that scares her. Then they decide to go to the beach behind the house and swim in the water together. At the same time, Raymond sees Will going to the party on the CCTV camera, so he decides to go there to arrest him. When Will and Sylvia go back inside the house, Raymond and his assistants come in and arrest Will. After checking Will's watch, they ask him about his time. Will explains about Henry and says that he did not steal this time but took it as a gift. And if they are looking for thieves, they should arrest everyone here. Raymond laughs and says that his words remind him of Will's father, because he knew his father. He then says that he has nothing to do with justice and only seeks to preserve time, so he orders that all of Will's time be taken from him, leaving only 2 hours to transport him to his own area. Suddenly, Will attacks Raymond's assistants and escapes from the room. Then he takes Sylvia hostage so that he can leave the house. They run away from there in a car and Raymond chases them. Finally, Will manages to escape. Will asks to borrow 2 hours of Sylvia's time, but Sylvia disagrees and accuses him of stealing from Henry. So Will decides to go back to his home. On the way back, the camera sees Will's face and a trap in the street causes them to flip the car and pass out. At the same time, Fortis and his men arrive there. Fortis realizes that Sylvia has 10 years and starts stealing Sylvia's time. Suddenly, the timekeepers arrive and Fortis is forced to leave before they completely steal Sylvia's time. When they regain consciousness, Sylvia realizes that she only has half an hour and asks Will for time. Will gives him a few minutes and asks him not to worry because he has been in this situation many times. Then they leave there. A little later, Raymond finds out what happened to them on the way. Will goes to his friend Borel's house, but his wife explains that after Will gave him 10 years, he died of too much alcohol. Then she closes the door. Will only has 3 minutes. Sylvia has 2 minutes, so Will decides to sell Sylvia's earrings for 48 hours.
I'll give you 2 days for them.
Will notices that Sylvia's father's name is on the signs in town. He asks how much time her father has and Sylvia answers centuries, so he forces Sylvia to enter her father's contact number. Knowing that Raymond is there, Will wants 1,000 years to free Sylvia. Raymond says that even with this time, he cannot survive. So Will wants to distribute 1,000 years of time to Time's Line in Dayton. And then, he will send Sylvia home. Raymond warns him not to repeat his father's mistakes. Will says his father died in a fight to gain time. But Raymond replies that his father dealt with more dangerous things. Will and Sylvia go to Will's house at night. Sylvia asks about Will's family. Will explains about the death of his mother and father. That his father was a smart fighter who distributed the time he got to people and gave them hope. But when Will was a child, he was killed. Then he tells the method that his father used to defeat his opponents. The next day, they wait for the time distribution center to start working, then realize that Philippe didn't donate the 1,000 years of time. So they decide to leave and Sylvia goes home because they don't have enough time to live. Will asks Sylvia to call her father and ask for help. Sylvia says that she will tell her father that it was her plan to escape and that she will try to help Will. Will gives Sylvia a gun and walks away to keep an eye on her until her father's men come to rescue her. When Sylvia calls her father, Raymond arrives and tries to kill Will. Sylvia finds out and shoots him. Will realizes that Raymond only has 2 hours. Raymond says they don't carry much time so thieves don't have the motivation to steal. But surprisingly, Will donates 2 hours to Raymond and they leave the place with Sylvia in Raymond's car. Sylvia wonders why Will gave his time to Raymond. Will replies that he couldn't let a timekeeper die in the slums because it would make things harder for them. They decide to steal time. So they stop a car and steal time from a rich woman for a day. Also, Will takes the woman's earrings and gives them back to Sylvia. Then they take their car and go to a secluded place. Later, in a meeting with other rich people, Philippe tries to convince them not to worry because he never paid the time. But they worry that this will spread and that too much time among people will cause the market to crash. At this moment, Raymond enters. He explains that Sylvia is now Will's associate and will be wanted. So if Sylvia calls Philippe and Philippe helps her, he will also issue an arrest warrant for Philippe. Philippe tries to bribe him. But Raymond does not accept and leaves the place. The next day, Will tries to teach Sylvia. Sylvia says she will help him get the time he wants to distribute to the poor. So they break into one of Philippe's banks that lends time to people and steal a large amount of time kits. After that, Will secretly starts distributing time to the needy. Raymond notices Will's actions, while his boss scolds him for not spending so much time in the area. But he says Will is hurting the poor by doing this. Elsewhere, we see Fortis trying to steal someone's time. The man takes out his gun and Fortis surrenders. But suddenly he shoots him from behind, and when he tries to steal his time, he realizes that his time is invalid. Philippe sees on the news that Sylvia helped Will rob his 6th bank in a week. He feels that Sylvia has betrayed him because he gave him everything. But Michelle says Sylvia is right because Philippe strangled her in her life. That night, Will and Sylvia play cards and make love at Will's house. Meanwhile, Raymond has identified their location. So when he tries to arrest them, Will finds out and they escape through the window with Sylvia. Raymond follows them. They escape to the roof of a factory, but Raymond continues to chase them. After they manage to get away from Raymond, they get on a bus and by paying for extra time, they convince the driver to let them go. The next day, Will and Sylvia go to a hotel and book all the rooms in the hotel so that no danger threatens them. When they want to go to the room, someone comes to reserve the room and sees them. At night, Fortis threatens some factory workers to give him Will's address. The man who saw Will at the hotel is there. Fortis starts taking people's time to reveal Will's information. So the man tells him that he saw Will at the hotel, but he wants to share in the reward for the capture of Will and Sylvia. A 10-year reward has been set for the capture of Will and Sylvia. Will and Sylvia are in the hotel. Suddenly Fortis and his men enter. They arrest Will and Sylvia. Fortis wants to kill Will in a fight. So they start to fight. But Will uses the same method as his father in fighting and kills Fortis. And then at the last moment, he pulls out his secret weapon and kills the Fortis people as well. And then they leave the hotel. Will sees the banks increasing the loan interest rates. And he says that their efforts are useless because they do not help people and hurt them. Sylvia says they should keep trying. Will answers that they need 1,000,000 years before they can help people. So Sylvia has a thought again. Sylvia goes to her father's workplace to surrender, while Philippe has hired many bodyguards. But suddenly he realizes that one of the bodyguards is Will. Will and Sylvia take Philippe hostage to get to his safe. After opening the safe, they take a time kit containing 1,000,000 years. Philippe says that their work is wrong, because it paralyzes the whole system and disturbs the balance of a generation. Will and Sylvia lock Philippe in his room and leave. Raymond discovers that 1,000,000 watches have been stolen from New Greenwich. So he looks for them. When he finds them on the street, he orders the cops to close the streets and shoot them if they are seen. But the car is bulletproof and they leave the time zone and return to their own time zone. Raymond tries to stop them there. But Will gives Maya the time kit to distribute to people. At this moment, there is a crowd and Will and Sylvia run away in the middle of the crowd. Raymond follows them and finds them in a place outside the city. When he wants to arrest them, his time runs out and he dies. Will and Sylvia are running out of time and cannot return to the city. So Will wants to give Sylvia his time until she comes back. But suddenly he realizes that he can use Raymond's time kit. So he quickly goes to Raymond's car and takes the time and gives it to Sylvia. After that, we see that the residents of the neighborhood have gained a lot of time and leave their time zone and go to other time zones. The system is crashing. So the other timekeepers stop working. Will and Sylvia continue their work to take time from the rich and distribute it to the poor. And the story ends here.